Atlanta is home to the nation's most watched criminal trial, and a trial that just happens to involve one of American music and American entertainment's most celebrated recording artists and performers. And we are, of course, talking about the trial of Jeffery Williams, also known as Young Thug, happening right here in Atlanta. I'm Tim Darnell, joined by Rachel Aragon. We have both been following, Rachel, you and I, both digitally on my end and from a broadcast standpoint on your end. We've been following this trial for months on end. It's been filled with controversy, filled with delays, and right now we are in the middle of yet another delay. Earlier on July 1st, I should say, Fulton County Superior Court Chief Judge Ural Glanville has officially paused the trial until such time that another judge in Fulton County, we presume, will rule on and decide on whether or not Glanville himself will be recused after numerous motions for mistrials and recusals. Rachel, we've really never seen anything like this in any trial here in Georgia, much less the nation, have we?
Correct. And this trial has seen its share of delays and disruptions, to say the very least. But this one, though, there are so many unknowns. As I mentioned before, though, you have to be wondering, what does the jury wonder right now? Because a lot of times the proceedings we show on air, online, that we talk about, the public knows, the jury oftentimes is not in the room. And case in point, when Brian Steele, the lead attorney for Young Thug, and Glanville, the judge, when they go back and forth about who leaked the info on this meeting, who did this, what happened, a lot of times in that instance especially, they're not in the room. And so you have to wonder, these jurors who've been off for several weeks now, what are they thinking now that it's suspended indefinitely?
We are expecting, by all accounts, for the jury to return per their previous instructions by Judge Glanville to return on Monday, July 8th. We don't know. We can only assume that they probably know a little bit about what's going on, but on Monday, July 8th, they will be officially informed by Judge Glanville that the trial is on hold. We don't expect him to offer any details to the jury, as that would be kind of prejudicial in terms of forming their opinions. But you have to wonder, if Judge Glanville is recused, when this jury is recalled, they may walk into a courtroom presided by a completely different judge and have no idea what's been going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and one of the biggest questions, too, is whoever this judge may be that takes over this massive trial, who has the time and schedule capability? Because remember, this trial expected to go years, really, as of last count. It's already gone several years from jury selection. But really, what judge right now, outside of Fulton County most likely, can take on this massive trial and have to push back or reschedule some of the things they already have on the docket? So it'll be very interesting to see what judge takes this on. And likely, many people tell me, including defense attorneys, it'll probably have to be someone outside of Fulton County, because someone really from Fulton County, a judge there, probably not the best idea to have them decide on something about their colleague, right? So there's so many unknowns right now, but it'll be a big question to see really who takes this on, if in fact he is recused.
This is rapidly becoming Georgia's longest criminal trial in history, rapidly perhaps becoming one of the longest criminal trials in U.S. history. It has already set the record for the longest jury selection of any trial in Georgia. It took a little over 10 months, as we all know. The previous record was held when jury selection was underway in the early 2000s, the early part of this century, for the Atlanta public school system cheating trial, cheating scandal. That trial, jury selection for that trial took 6 months. The trial itself took 6 months. we are already well past both of those records. And realistically, how much longer could this trial conceivably, go? Let's say Judge Glanville is not recused and the trial proceeds as it has been going. How many witnesses have we seen? How many more do we still have to go?
Yeah, that's a great point, because even if he does stay on the bench, we've got to remind people again, the prosecution has now dwindled down their list to about 200 witnesses. For some context, here back in April or so, we were sitting around 50 or so witnesses. I would have to imagine between April and today, July 5th, I don't think we've gone through 50 more. Maybe we're somewhere just under 100 or so. So to answer your question, we have a long way to go, even if Glanville does stay on the bench.
Now, one of those witnesses currently at the center of this latest delay is Kenneth Copeland. The reason the trial is being delayed and has been paused at this point is because back on June 10th, 2024, Judge Glanville, two Fulton County prosecutors, Kenneth Copeland and his stand-in attorney, held what's called an ex parte meeting behind closed doors, a meeting that was not made public or announced to any of the other attorneys for any of the other defendants, including Brian Steele. Take us through the events of that day that led to unprecedented, a leading attorney for a leading defense attorney for a key defendant actually being held in contempt and almost being carted off to the Fulton County Jail.
Yeah, the star witness, Kenneth Copeland, you just mentioned, if you guys recall, took the bench, though, but he did not want to testify, and he made that very, very clear, to the point, though, while on the stand, he takes the fifth, and that's what really prompted all of this. That was in front of the jurors, no less, and Glanville was not too pleased about that, to say the least. So there was this push to try to get him to testify. We also need to make known, though, he has an immunity clause, so prosecutors are saying he should be able to testify on these past alleged events. So he takes the fifth, he goes to jail, held in custody. That is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Monday is July 10th, the big day. That's when that meeting happened. And there was talk, and I know, Tim, you read the transcript of that meeting. There was this push to get him to testify, of course, because this is their star witness, right? But defense attorneys are not in that meeting. So that is really what prompted all this. The meeting itself was because there was this push or need to have Copeland testify as part of the state's key part of their case. But again, as we saw infamously, he did plead the fifth on the stand, and that just prompted a whole other issue or two.
And that is really why we are in an indefinite pause, a trial that has seen more than its share of bizarre instances, more than its share of delays, and countless numbers of motions for calling for Judge Glanville's recusal, calling for a mistrial. At this point, what is it going to take for an official mistrial to occur? What are the consequences of that?
That's a great question. Also, to remind people, there are several motions that were filed to recuse Judge Glanville. We know one of them from Doug Weinstein, one of the attorneys for the co-defendant, is focused largely, if not solely, on that ex parte meeting. But then there is Brian Steele, the lead attorney for Young Thug, also known as Jeffery Williams, and he's really focused on bias. He's claimed time and time again that he believes Judge Glanville favors the prosecution. And, we saw that play out, according to his eyes, when he was held in contempt right there. So he kind of points back to several different instances throughout this trial, but especially recently, on how he believes the prosecution, though, and the judge are kind of on one side. So it'll be interesting to see how this new judge, whoever that may be, looks at these different motions and says if he or she believes, in fact, there's merit to this, and if, Judge Glanville should be removed.
On the trial of Young Thug, which we earlier referred to as perhaps Atlanta's trial of the 21st century, is ongoing. Atlanta News First and AtlantaNewsFirst.com has full broadcast and digital coverage. We have our own landing page, so several podcasts that you'll no doubt find interesting and insightful. video recaps of all of the trials, numerous, almost countless number of dramatic moments, fireworks inside and outside the courtroom, all complete comprehensive coverage of the trial of Young Thug here on Atlanta News First. I'm Tim Darnell, digital producer. Rachel Aragon has been covering the trial extensively for all of our viewers on WANF Atlanta News First. Stay with Atlanta News First and AtlantaNewsFirst.com for all of the developing news and information coming out of the trial of Young Thug in Atlanta.